an introduction, I think, a little talk from our president of the Telesio Galilei Academy of Science. Can I introduce you to, or may I introduce you to, my colleague Jeremy Dunning-Davis.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, thank you all for attending here. I know a number of you have travelled a tremendous distance, and one or two people have travelled quite a distance this morning in order to be here with us. So thank you all very much indeed. Now, just briefly, I want to mention something about the Telesio Galilei Academy itself. It started in 2007. It was the brainchild of Francesco Fucilla, who is here with us this morning, over on my left. We all owe him, I think, a great debt for setting up this academy. The crucial thing about it is what are its aims? I'd like to just focus on what its main aim is. And its main aim from the very beginning has been to promote openness in science. Now, this sounds a very obvious thing to say. Most people uninitiated think that automatically assume there is complete openness in science. Those of us that are on the inside know that this is not quite the case. And so this was the main aim of the association, to promote openness, but in all branches of science. It was hoped that we would help with the dissemination of views of all kinds throughout all of the scientific community, and to catalyse research into the foundations, initially of subjects like chemistry, physics, biology, but eventually we were hoping to move on to literally all areas of science, and to promote new ideas as well. Now, this is often a very tricky thing to do, because if somebody does some work which is outside the mainstream, how do you evaluate it? It's very easy to think about this and say, oh, well, we should look at everything, but there is potentially some work that is going on that people with experience can look at and realize is going to be non-productive in the long run. But then there's other work which is again outside the mainstream, which may produce something revolutionary in the not too distant future, maybe in the more distant future. We can think back to examples of this. We can think back to the Copernican revolution, which was mentioned earlier, and then coming to more modern times, we can think of the revolution in science that was provoked by Einstein's theories of relativity and quantum mechanics, for example. Now, I'll apologize to everybody present for picking on some examples which are from theoretical physics, but I'm afraid that's my area of moderate expertise, and so it's natural for me to draw on that. But I'm sure that, well, in fact, I know for certain that there are people in the room that could stand up here and now and give us examples in biology and chemistry and so on very, very easily. But it's very easy for us to look back and think of these big changes that have come about in the past. But if we're going to try and support people who are going to be responsible for such changes in the future, that is very much more difficult. And so what we have within the Academy, what we're setting up, is a group of people with that expertise and experience that they can bring to bear on such suggestions that come forward for us to consider. It is hoped in the not too distant future that the Academy itself will be able to fund some of these changes, these revolutionary ideas that are going to be investigated in the future. But that is something for the, we hope, not too distant future. We're aiming to provide a bridge between newly developed concepts and existing work in fields, creating a synergy between them that can be beneficial to growth in all different areas, in all directions. And at the basis of this is that we want to be able to encourage innovative projects. Today, in this ceremony, we're going to honour 10 of our world's leading scientists, whose remarkable contributions, in all honesty, can only be regarded as markers in the history of science. And speaking personally, may I just say in conclusion how delighted I am that those people are able to be with us here today. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. And the second person to address us gives me pleasure, great pleasure, when I introduce the chairman of the Academy, Walter Alves Rodriguez. He's right here.
Dear awardees, ladies and gentlemen, our president, Professor Dunning Davis, gave us all a clear description of our academy and the raison d'etre of our earliest awardees, leaving me with only a few words to add. The Telesio Galilei Academy of Science has been growing steadily over the years. The board of directors have carefully shaped its objectives in order to see that alongside other illustrious academies, we too could contribute to encouraging scientific developments that are now more than ever so very needed on this troubled period of man history, where scientific and technology developments are a prerequisite in assuming humanity continuation. The board of the Telesio Galilei Academy of Science are doing their best in these not so easy days to fulfill the noble ideals we have set. We do our best from the depths of our hearts and mind in order for today and for all eternity we may rejoice to live in a boundless universe of infinite possibilities, a place where, as expressed in the words of William Blake, you can always see a word in a grain of sand and a heaven in a white flower, hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in 1 hour. And thank you for your attention.
It's interesting and in some ways significant to find addresses or references to two English poets. Milton himself wrestled with Copernicanism in Paradise Lost, and a great philosopher was William Blake, two poets, 17th and 19th centuries of England. We'll now, if we may, move to the awards themselves. Before I do so, just a second or two. Yes, the founding father sits over to my left, Francesco Fucilla. I hope those who have not met him, most have, will do so later. But can I make the first award to Diaro Guidis di Figueredo for his great contribution to mathematics, and among these we might mention the characterization of Hilbert spaces, solutions of superlinear elliptic problems, criticalities of Hamiltonian elliptic systems and superlinear elliptic systems, and also the maximum principles for what is the non-cooperative systems of biology. Those would characterize his work. And Giaro, would you like to come and receive your award?
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to express my deepest gratitude to the directory of the Telesio Galilei Academy of Sciences, Professor Jeremy Dunning Davis, President, Teres Clifford Ames, Vice President, Kirill Shukhanov,
General Secretary, Valdir Alves Rodrigues Jr., Chairman, and Franco Salary, Deputy Chairman. I think it's a great honor for me to receive that. It comes to me a poem of the famous English poet of the 18th century, John Donne. No man is an island. That's the title of the poem. It's a beautiful poem. So I feel that the honor has to be shared with me by several people that were more important for my career, more essentially, as a matter of fact. Starting with my father, living in a small town in the northeast of Brazil, a region afflicted by periodic droughts, it was not easy for him to cover the expenses of my education in other cities, including Rio de Janeiro. That was the capital of Brazil at the time. But he never said no to my daring projects. In the School of Engineering in Rio de Janeiro, I was lucky to have my teacher of rational mechanics, Professor Peixoto, Maurício Matos Peixoto, probably one of the first Brazilian mathematicians to achieve international recognition for his work in dynamical systems, and his joint work with the French mathematician René Thom. Peixoto was a good advisor in my first years of my advanced studies in mathematics. In the 1950s were very important for the development of science in Brazil. The National Research Council was created at the time. The Brazilian Center for Physics Research had been found a couple years before due to physicists like Cesar Lattes, Oliveira Castro, Leite Lopes, and other physicists, important Brazilian physicists at the time. In 1952, the Institute of Pure and Applied Mathematics was founded. Since there was no school of mathematics in Brazil at the time, you see, mathematics in Brazil essentially started in 1934 with the creation of the University of São Paulo and coming of scientists from Italy at the time. But there was a gap until 1950s, the 50s, when the National Research Council started a program of sending young Brazilian mathematicians, young men, to study abroad. I was very lucky to get a fellowship from the National Research Council. And Peixoto was again very important for me because he chose to send me to New York University, to the Institute of Mathematical Science. Today it's called the Courant Institute of Mathematical Sciences. And it was a privilege for me to have Louis Nirenberg as my advisor, and to be at the Courant Institute in the 50s and 60s was actually a privilege, because Courant had been able essentially to take to New York the best mathematicians that were in Göttingen due to the problems of the war. And Nirenberg was very important in my career. And he introduced me to the important problems in the theory of partial differential equations, especially the elliptic equations. So you see, I have these people as very important in my career, but I am also very thankful to my wife, Maruja, who during more than 50 years has given me all the support and the stimulus for my work. It's a lot of patience of her to have me for 50 years. Okay. In conclusion, I would like to thank again the Telesio Galilei Academy of Science for this honor that that so kindly has granted to me. So thank you very much.